Hello and welcome to Business Morning on Channels Television. I'm Chimezie Obi Iwagu. Well, the National Bureau of Statistics has just released the first quarter GDP numbers, indicating that Nigeria's gross domestic product grew by 1.95% year-on-year in real terms in the first quarter of 2018. Now, this shows a stronger growth when compared with the first quarter of 2017, which recorded a growth of 0.91%, indicating an increase of 2.87% points. Now, compared to the fourth quarter of 2017, there was a decline of 0.16% from 2.11%. Now, this is coming at a time the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank begins its two-day rate decision meeting. Now, let's bring in Mr. Bismarck Rwani, CEO of Financial Derivatives Company, for a quick reaction to the GDP numbers. Good morning, Mr. Rwani. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Tunisia.
I was seeing the first quarter GDP rate coming lower, 1.95% from the fourth quarter. Were you really expecting this?
No, we expected some flatlining, and some other more optimistic analysts were expecting something higher. But reality, the fourth quarter numbers were actually revised from 1.95 up to 2.11. So essentially what we've had, quarter-on-quarter decline of 0.16, which is significant. But if you compare to the whole year of 2017, 0.8 was the annual growth rate. So this is actually 1.15 higher than the annual growth rate of 2017. Having said that, some things need to be taken into consideration. One, that in the first quarter, we've noticed an actual decline in the PMI. We've also noticed a decline in the Consumer Confidence Index. Also, the fastest growing sectors, insurance, oil, financial institutions, and telecoms, these are sectors that are not interest rate sensitive. The contracting sectors, which is real estate, trade, construction, these are interest rate sensitive sectors. So it is important to understand that monetary policy has to complement fiscal policy. If not, we are just going to be rotating in one spot. That is motion without movement. Technically speaking, the economy needs a stimulus. The stimulus from incentives by the budget, which was delayed, which affected the first quarter, and low interest rates, high interest rates, which is affecting the level of credit in the economy.
Okay, but then a lot of people would argue that the central bank will probably not be looking just at the GDP. Now we have the foreign exchange market, which seems to be an issue now. The central bank, despite its continuous buffer to that market, the foreign exchange market seems to be dropping, particularly at the parallel market.
No, that's Q2. We are talking about Q1. In Q1, foreign exchange was available. In Q1, all that happened was that interest rate sensitive sectors were, first of all, the cost of borrowing was high. Secondly, the amount of credit being extended by the banking system was actually reduced. So we saw credit to the private sector grow marginally, and we saw interest rates remain high, and the treasury bill rates were still very high. It is in the second quarter we started seeing a decline in treasury bill rates, and now begin to see a reduction in credit. So what needs to be done is that the central bank has to consider strongly whether it's time to bring down interest rates. Because if you don't do that, because you are trying to attract international investors, hot money, you will actually squeeze and choke the domestic economy out of existence.
So now what happens if perhaps the central bank decides to retain the rate just as they've been doing for some time now?
No, nothing will happen. All that will happen is that it will take more time to recover. It's going to, so if you, for example, you have an ailment, if you took your drugs, you are taking an underdose basically, it will take you much, much longer to recover than if you took the correct dose. And if you are given a stimulus, it's like if you have a problem, then they give you an injection because they want to, intravenous infusion will be more effective than taking your tablets. What the Nigerian economy needs now is an intravenous injection rather than tablets. Oral medication is not going to help us at this point, and that's what the central bank is giving us.
Now, looking at the global trend and perhaps what the local trend here, which factor do you think the central bank may probably consider most in its decision making?
First and foremost, central bank is not in charge of fiscal policy, so they use growth as a proxy. Their own objective is to maintain price stability. But price stability is useful when an economy is growing. The biggest problem this economy is facing today is unemployment, lack of economic activity, and just look at the sectors that actually slowed. Apart from those that contracted, the ones that slowed were even more interesting. You have transport, power, agri, arts and entertainment, emotional. All of these sectors, even though still in positive territory, they slowed down significantly. So apart from contraction, you have those that slow down and then those who are moving fast. The first ones are insurance, oil, financial institutions, and telecoms. These sectors do not employ that many people, right? They are more or less capital intensive. So the sectors that employ people that would deal with unemployment, which is a critical problem, where the voters are going to respond. Don't forget that unemployment plus inflation gives you your misery index. You must do something about that. So the central bank cannot be in isolation. They have to live within the context of this economy. I know they are meeting right now, but it's good that everybody speaks out so that they know that it's time to give a stimulus to this economy so that we can recover faster than we are recovering right now. The recovery is fragile, uneven, and slow, and you can see how vulnerable it is to shocks.
Now, have you considered the upcoming election? Perhaps that, of course, would form part of their decision-making strategy.
Well, I have considered that, but you see, in the end, elections are about people. People are about, so what is more important to people, unemployment or inflation? What affects the man's table today is unemployment. Inflation is very important, but that's price stability. But you can allow a certain amount of price stability if you can create jobs. It is the unemployed people that create dysfunctional items in the society. They are the unemployed people that are kidnapping. They are unemployed people are in robberies. So if you reduce the unemployment, you can actually reduce dysfunctional behavior in the society, and then inflation begins to take. And quite frankly, an increase in output due to increased activity will help to actually bring down inflation. So it's not necessarily that if you bring down interest rates, increase credit, that it will create inflationary pressures. It will have some impact on the foreign exchange rate, but there's nothing we can do about that. We have to deal with that.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Bismarck Ruwane. Well, let's just hope and wait and see what the central bank and its committee will do eventually. Tomorrow is the announcement. Thank you very much for your time.